I remember the first time I felt it, an unexplainable presence that seemed to inhabit the old house in Bluffton, Indiana. I was just 5 years old, and the memory of that night still sends shivers down my spine. It was Christmas Eve, and our house was filled with the warm glow of twinkling lights and the aroma of freshly baked cookies. The tree, standing proudly in the corner of the living room, was adorned with ornaments that had been in our family for generations. I sat by the fireplace, lost in the magical anticipation of Christmas morning. Suddenly, the tree began to tremble. At first, I thought it was just my imagination or a draft from the old windows. But the shaking grew more pronounced, and the lights flickered ominously. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched, frozen in place. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, a white figure darting down the hallway. It moved so quickly that I almost doubted my own eyes, but the terror I felt was all too real. I tried to call out to my parents, but my voice seemed trapped in my throat. The figure disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone with my fear. As the years passed, that eerie sense of something otherworldly never left me. The house, with its creaking floors and drafty corners, always felt alive in a way that was unsettling. I would hear whispers at night, voices too faint to understand but impossible to ignore. Shadows danced in the periphery of my vision, vanishing the moment I turned to look. When I was 10, my beloved grandfather passed away. His death hit me hard. We had been incredibly close. But with his passing, the supernatural occurrences intensified. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard his voice calling my name. It was so clear, so unmistakable, that I jumped up and ran into the hallway expecting to see him. Instead, I saw his shadow, a dark silhouette, disappearing into the darkness. Desperate for answers, I began researching the history of our house. I discovered that it had been built on the site of an old cemetery, long forgotten by most of the town. This revelation only deepened my fears and added a new layer of dread to our already haunted home. My parents, too, began to notice the strange phenomena. My mother often complained about cold drafts that seemed to come from nowhere, and my father occasionally heard footsteps echoing through the empty hallways. The atmosphere in our home grew increasingly tense, and we all felt the strain. After much deliberation, my parents decided it was time to leave. We packed up our lives and moved to a nearby town, hoping to escape the hauntings that had plagued us for so long. In our new home, the eerie sensations ceased. There were no more whispers, no more shadows lurking in the corners, and no more trembling Christmas trees. For the first time in years, we felt a sense of peace. But even now, many years later, I can't shake the memories of that house. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I think I hear my grandfather's voice calling to me, and I wonder if the past will ever truly let me go. The echoes of our time in Bluffton linger like ghostly whispers in the depths of my memory. Despite the passage of years, the vivid recollections of that Christmas night and the subsequent years of inexplicable occurrences continue to haunt me. The old house, with its secrets buried deep within its walls, seemed to hold a connection to realms beyond our understanding. Its history intertwined with our own, revealing a tapestry of emotions that ranged from wonder to fear. Each December, as the holiday season approached, a palpable tension would descend upon our household. The anticipation of Christmas cheer mingled with an underlying apprehension, as if the very air around us was charged with unseen forces. The familiar rituals of decorating the tree and baking cookies took on a surreal quality, overshadowed by the unexplained phenomena that punctuated our lives. The flickering lights on that fateful Christmas Eve seemed to dance to a rhythm known only to the spirits that roamed our home. The ornaments, delicate heirlooms passed down through generations, bore witness to the spectral presence that made its presence known with every shiver of the tree. My young mind struggled to comprehend the inexplicable, seeking solace in the warmth of the fireplace that flickered with an ancient wisdom. Even in the midst of everyday life, the house exuded a sense of unease. Its time-worn floorboards groaned beneath our footsteps, carrying whispers of the past that echoed through the corridors. Night after night I would lie awake, listening to the murmurs that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The boundary between the living and the dead blurred in those quiet hours, leaving me to ponder the mysteries that lay hidden in the shadows. The passing of my grandfather marked a turning point in our haunting tale. His departure from this world left a void that was keenly felt within the walls of our home. Yet, his spirit lingered on, reaching out to me in moments of solitude with a spectral touch that defied rational explanation. His voice, filled with love and longing, echoed through the chambers of my heart, a testament to the enduring bonds that transcend the boundaries of life and death. Driven by a relentless curiosity, I delved into the annals of history that intertwined with our house. The revelation of its origins atop a forgotten cemetery unveiled a chilling truth that sent shivers down my spine. The land itself held memories of lives long past, their presence lingering like a phantom echo in the fabric of our existence. Each discovery peeled back another layer of the veil that shrouded our haunted abode, revealing a tapestry of souls whose stories intertwined with our own. For my parents, the realization of our home's spectral inhabitants came gradually. Cold drafts whispered through the corridors, defying any attempt to seal them out. Footsteps echoed in empty rooms, their origins a mystery that stirred unease in the depths of our collective consciousness. The weight of the supernatural phenomena bore down upon us, casting a pall over our once happy home. In the end, the decision to leave was born out of necessity. We sought refuge in a new beginning, hoping to leave behind the specters that had shadowed our lives for so long. The move brought a sense of relief, as if we had escaped the gravitational pull of a force that had threatened to consume us. In the tranquil embrace of our new surroundings, the echoes of the past began to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of peace and possibility. Yet, as I reflect upon those tumultuous years, I find myself inexorably drawn back to the house in Bluffton. Its memory lingers like a phantom limb, a reminder of the trials and tribulations that shaped my understanding of the world. In the stillness of night, I sometimes hear the faint echo of my grandfather's voice, a poignant reminder that some bonds are eternal, transcending the boundaries of time and space. As I navigate the currents of life, I carry with me the lessons learned amidst the whispers of the past, forever intertwined with the tapestry of my existence. The old house in Bluffton always had an air of mystery about it. Even as a young child, I sensed that something wasn't quite right. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains in the breeze seemed to whisper secrets that I was too young to understand. My parents brushed off my fears as childish imagination, but deep down, I knew there was something more. After that unforgettable Christmas Eve, my fear of the house grew stronger. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, too afraid to close my eyes. Every night brought new terrors, whispers that floated through the darkness, shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. I would pull the covers over my head and squeeze my eyes shut, praying for sleep to come and for the night to end. The years went by, and the house's strange occurrences became a part of my everyday life. I learned to live with the constant feeling of being watched, with the sudden drops in temperature that made my skin prickle with goosebumps. I stopped mentioning the incidents to my parents, realizing that they didn't hear the whispers or see the shadows that haunted me. I felt isolated in my fear, alone in a house that seemed to hold a grudge against me. When my grandfather died, the house's malevolence seemed to intensify. My grandfather had been my confidant, the one person who believed me when I spoke of the house's eerie happenings. His death left a void that was quickly filled with even more unsettling experiences. One evening, as I sat in the living room, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. "Ethan?" it whispered softly. My heart skipped a beat. It was my grandfather's voice, unmistakable in its warmth and familiarity. I followed the sound down the dimly lit hallway, my steps hesitant and my breath shallow. At the end of the hallway, I saw a shadowy figure. It stood still for a moment, then slowly turned to face me. The figure was shrouded in darkness, but I knew it was my grandfather. His presence filled me with a strange mixture of comfort and fear. I wanted to reach out to him, to speak to him, but my voice failed me. The shadow faded into the wall, leaving me standing there, trembling. In the days that followed, I became obsessed with uncovering the truth about our house. I spent hours in the local library, poring over old newspapers and historical records. I learned that our house had been built on the site of a long-forgotten cemetery. The discovery explained a lot, but also deepened my sense of dread. Meanwhile, my family began to experience the house's strange phenomena. My mother often remarked on the sudden cold drafts that seemed to come from nowhere. My father, a staunch skeptic, admitted that he occasionally heard footsteps echoing through the empty hallways. We all felt the house's oppressive atmosphere, a constant reminder that we were not alone. The decision to move came as a relief to all of us. Packing up our belongings and leaving behind the house that had been our home for so many years was bittersweet, but necessary. We hoped that the hauntings would end with our departure. In our new home, the eerie sensations ceased. There were no more whispers in the night, no more shadows lurking in the corners. For the first time in years, we felt a sense of normalcy. We could finally sleep without fear, live without the constant feeling of being watched. But even as we settled into our new life, I couldn't shake the memories of the old house. The experiences I had there left a lasting mark on me. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, I would think I heard my grandfather's voice calling to me. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the past would ever truly let me go. The haunting presence of the old house in Bluffton had followed me into adulthood, a shadow that lingered in the corners of my mind. And though the strange phenomena had stopped, the fear remained, a reminder of the things that can never be fully explained or understood. The passage of time did little to diminish the impact of those haunting years. As I navigated through adulthood, the memories of the old house continued to resurface, a persistent reminder of a chapter in my life filled with inexplicable events. The lingering unease persisted, an invisible thread connecting my present to a past fraught with spectral encounters. Despite the tranquility of our new surroundings, echoes of the past haunted my thoughts. The relief of leaving the old house behind was tempered by a lingering sense of unresolved mystery. I often found myself pondering the significance of the cemetery beneath our former home, wondering about the restless spirits whose presence had once intertwined with ours. Life moved forward, yet the spectral encounters of my youth continued to shape my worldview. I became attuned to subtle shifts in atmosphere, sensitive to the slightest hint of the supernatural. Even in moments of joy and success, a part of me remained tethered to the inexplicable events that had unfolded within those haunted walls. The passage of each Christmas brought with it a quiet reflection on that fateful night when the trembling tree had heralded a presence beyond comprehension. The warmth of holiday traditions mingled with a solemn acknowledgement of the unknown, a nod to the enduring mysteries that had defined my childhood. In quiet moments, I would revisit the library of my youth, poring over historical texts in search of answers that remained elusive. The stories of forgotten souls buried beneath our former home whispered through the pages, their voices a faint echo of a time long past. Each revelation added a layer to the tapestry of our haunted history, weaving a narrative that blurred the boundaries between the living and the dead. As the years stretched on, I found solace in the company of loved ones who shared in my journey. Their presence offered a semblance of normalcy amidst the lingering shadows of the old house. Yet, beneath the surface of our daily lives, the memory of that haunting presence in Bluffton lingered like a ghostly apparition, a testament to the enduring power of the inexplicable. Years passed, and though the fear of the old house in Bluffton lingered, life in our new home was blessedly normal. My parents and I found solace in the routine of everyday life, free from the strange occurrences that had haunted us. But as Christmas approached once again, memories of that fateful night returned, more vivid than ever. I was now 15, and the excitement of Christmas was as palpable as ever. We decorated our new house with the same ornaments we had used in Bluffton, trying to recreate the magic without the underlying terror. On Christmas Eve, I found myself sitting by the fireplace, just as I had done a decade earlier. The tree stood tall and bright, its lights casting a warm glow throughout the room. As I sat there, lost in thought, a sudden chill ran down my spine. The room grew noticeably colder, and the lights on the tree began to flicker. My heart raced, and I quickly glanced around, half expecting to see the white figure from my childhood. But there was nothing, just the tree, trembling slightly, and the oppressive silence of the room. I tried to convince myself that it was merely a coincidence, a trick of the mind brought on by old fears. But deep down, I knew better. The feeling of being watched returned, stronger than ever. I could almost hear the whispers, too faint to make out, but unmistakable in their presence. Unable to shake the feeling, I decided to explore the house. I walked down the hallway, the same way I had in Bluffton, my footsteps echoing in the quiet. As I passed by my parents' bedroom, I heard a soft rustling sound. I paused, straining to listen, but the sound stopped as abruptly as it had begun. Continuing down the hall, I approached my room. The door was slightly ajar, and a sliver of light spilled out into the hallway. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside and froze. There, standing by my bed, was a shadowy figure. It was tall and indistinct, but there was something familiar about it. "Grandpa," I whispered, my voice trembling. The figure didn't move, didn't respond. It simply stood there, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I wanted to run, to call out for my parents, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to tear my eyes away from the shadow. After what felt like an eternity, the figure slowly began to fade, dissolving into the darkness of the room. I blinked, and it was gone. The chill in the air dissipated, and the house was once again still and silent. Shaken, I made my way back to the living room, where the tree now stood perfectly still, its lights shining brightly. I sat down, trying to make sense of what I had just witnessed. Was it really my grandfather? Or was it something else, something tied to the house in Bluffton that had followed us here? The rest of the night passed without incident, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The next morning, as we gathered around the tree to open presents, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadowy figure again. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences ceased. Life returned to normal, and I tried to put the incident behind me. But the memory of that night stayed with me, a constant reminder of the unexplained and the unknown. My parents noticed my unease and asked if something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them. They had finally found peace, and I didn't want to shatter it with my fears. Instead, I buried the experience deep within me, hoping that it would fade with time. But as the years went by, I realized that some things never truly go away. The shadowy figure, the whispers, and the chill in the air, they were all a part of me now, echoes of a past that refused to be forgotten. And though the house in Bluffton was far behind us, its presence lingered, a haunting reminder of the things that dwell just beyond the edge of understanding. The Christmas nights that followed carried a weight of anticipation mixed with apprehension. Each flicker of a candle or rustle of wrapping paper evoked memories of that chilling encounter. I found myself drawn to the solitude of my thoughts, wondering if the spirit of my grandfather or some other restless soul sought to communicate with me. In quiet moments, I revisited the old records and accounts, searching for clues that might unravel the mystery of our haunted past. The stories of the cemetery beneath our former home continued to whisper through the corridors of time, hinting at secrets buried deep within the earth. As I matured, I sought to understand the boundaries between the realms of the living and the dead. The inexplicable events of my youth became a catalyst for introspection, prompting me to explore the realms of spirituality and the paranormal. Despite the passage of time, the unanswered questions lingered like phantoms, urging me to confront the lingering shadows of the past. The spectral presence of the old house in Bluffton had left an indelible mark on my soul, a testament to the enduring mysteries that defy rational explanation. And so, as each Christmas approached, I found myself standing at the threshold of remembrance, caught between the warmth of holiday traditions and the chilling reminder of a night when the boundaries between worlds blurred. High school was supposed to be a time of new beginnings, but for me, it was a continuation of the old fears that had haunted my childhood. Though we had left Bluffton behind, the eerie sensations persisted, especially during the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts. One evening, as I was finishing my homework, I heard it again, a faint whisper, just beyond the edge of hearing. It was a soft, unintelligible murmur that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I paused, straining to catch the words, but they eluded me, fading into the background noise of the house. I shook my head, trying to dismiss it as my imagination playing tricks on me. But the feeling of unease lingered, a constant presence that I couldn't ignore. The shadows in my room seemed to grow darker, more defined, and I found myself glancing over my shoulder more often, half expecting to see the shadowy figure from that Christmas Eve. As the weeks went by, the occurrences became more frequent. I would hear footsteps in the hallway at night, slow and deliberate, as if someone was pacing just outside my door. Objects in my room would be moved, ever so slightly, from their usual places. A book that I had left on my desk would be on the floor, or a picture frame would be tilted at an odd angle. My parents noticed my growing anxiety and asked if something was bothering me. I wanted to tell them everything, to share the burden of my fears, but I hesitated. They had finally found peace after leaving Bluffton, and I didn't want to disrupt it with my own insecurities. Instead, I put on a brave face and assured them that I was fine, that it was just the stress of school. But the truth was, I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Every night I lay in bed, straining to hear the whispers and footsteps, my heart pounding in my chest. Sleep became elusive, and my grades began to suffer. I was constantly exhausted, my mind a fog of fear and confusion. One night, I decided to confront the source of my terror. Armed with a flashlight, I crept out of my room and into the hallway, determined to find whatever was haunting me. The house was eerily silent, the only sound my own shallow breathing. I made my way to the living room, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The Christmas tree was still up, its lights now dimmed, casting long shadows across the room. I approached it cautiously, half expecting it to start trembling as it had all those years ago. But the tree remained still, its ornaments glinting in the faint light. I turned away, my flashlight sweeping across the room, and that's when I saw it, a shadowy figure standing by the fireplace. It was the same as before, tall and indistinct, but with an aura of familiarity that sent chills down my spine. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. It simply stood there, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I took a step forward, then another, my fear battling with my need for answers. As I drew closer, the figure began to fade, dissolving into the darkness. I reached out, desperate to make contact, but my hand passed through empty air. The chill in the room dissipated, and the silence returned. I stood there, my heart racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was it really my grandfather, as I had once believed? Or was it something else, something darker, that had followed us from Bluffton? The next day, I resolved to find out more about our new home. I visited the local library and began researching its history, hoping to uncover any clues that might explain the strange occurrences. What I found was unsettling. Our house had been built on the site of an old church that had burned down decades ago. There were rumors of unmarked graves and restless spirits, stories that sent shivers down my spine. Armed with this new information, I returned home, determined to face whatever was haunting us. I knew that the only way to find peace was to confront the past, to understand the source of the whispers and shadows. But as I delved deeper into the history of our house, I began to realize that some mysteries are best left unsolved. The more I learned, the more the line between reality and the supernatural blurred. And though I yearned for answers, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the shadowy figure was always just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The presence that had haunted me for so long was growing stronger, more insistent, and as Christmas approached once again, I couldn't help but wonder if we had ever truly escaped the old house in Bluffton, or if it had simply found a new way to reach us. The Christmas nights that followed carried a weight of anticipation mixed with apprehension. Each flicker of a candle or rustle of wrapping paper evoked memories of that chilling encounter. I found myself drawn to the solitude of my thoughts, wondering if the spirit of my grandfather or some other restless soul sought to communicate with me. In quiet moments, I revisited the old records and accounts, searching for clues that might unravel the mystery of our haunted past. The stories of the cemetery beneath our former home continued to whisper through the corridors of time, hinting at secrets buried deep within the earth. As I matured, I sought to understand the boundaries between the realms of the living and the dead. The inexplicable events of my youth became a catalyst for introspection, prompting me to explore the realms of spirituality and the paranormal. Despite the passage of time, the unanswered questions lingered like phantoms, urging me to confront the lingering shadows of the past. The spectral presence of the old house in Bluffton had left an indelible mark on my soul, a testament to the enduring mysteries that defy rational explanation. And so, as each Christmas approached, I found myself standing at the threshold of remembrance, caught between the warmth of holiday traditions and the chilling reminder of a night when the boundaries between worlds blurred. The day my grandfather died marked a turning point in my life and in the haunting presence that seemed to follow me. His passing left a void that was quickly filled with an intensification of the eerie phenomena that had plagued our family for years. It was as if his death had awakened something, stirring the supernatural forces that lurked in the shadows of our home. I remember the day vividly. It was a cold, grey afternoon when we received the call. Grandpa had passed away peacefully in his sleep, or so we were told. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. He had been my confidant, the one person who believed me when I spoke of the strange occurrences that no one else seemed to notice. Without him, I felt utterly alone in my fear. In the days following his death, the house seemed to come alive with activity. I would hear his voice, calling my name in the dead of night. "Ethan," it would whisper, soft and comforting, yet tinged with an otherworldly echo that made my skin crawl. Each time I would bolt upright in bed, my heart racing, and strain to hear more. But the voice would fade, leaving me with only the oppressive silence of the house. One evening, as I sat in the living room trying to distract myself with a book, I felt a cold breeze brush against my neck. I shivered and looked up, expecting to see an open window, but everything was shut tight. The lights flickered, and my breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I turned my head toward the hallway, where a shadowy figure stood, just barely visible in the dim light. "Grandpa!" I called out, my voice trembling. The figure moved closer, its form becoming more defined. It was tall and indistinct, much like the shadow I had seen on that Christmas Eve years ago. I wanted to run, to call for my parents, but I was paralyzed with fear and a strange sense of longing. The figure raised its hand, as if reaching out to me, and I took an involuntary step forward. Just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving me standing there, shivering and confused. The cold breeze dissipated, and the lights stopped flickering. I collapsed onto the couch, my mind racing with questions and fear. The next day, I found myself drawn to Grandpa's old study, a room we rarely entered since his passing. It was filled with his books, his old typewriter, and the faint scent of his aftershave. As I looked around, I noticed something odd. A framed photograph on his desk was slightly askew. I reached out to straighten it and saw a small folded piece of paper tucked behind the frame. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper. It was a letter from Grandpa, dated just a few days before his death. In it, he spoke of the house, of the strange occurrences he had experienced but had never mentioned to anyone but me. He wrote about the whispers, the shadows, and the feeling of being watched. He mentioned a sense of unease that had grown stronger over the years, culminating in his belief that the house was indeed haunted. He ended the letter with a warning. "Ethan, you must be strong. Whatever haunts this house is tied to our family. I fear my passing will only make it stronger. Be vigilant, my boy, and know that I am always with you." Tears streamed down my face as I read his words. I felt a renewed sense of determination, a resolve to understand and confront whatever was haunting us, but I also felt an overwhelming sadness, knowing that Grandpa had faced the same fears and uncertainties that I now faced. In the weeks that followed, the supernatural occurrences became more frequent and intense. My parents, who had always been skeptical, began to notice the strange happenings as well. My mother would wake up in the middle of the night, convinced she heard Grandpa's voice. My father, always the pragmatist, admitted that he sometimes felt a cold presence in the house, especially in Grandpa's old study. As Christmas approached, the air grew heavy with tension. The tree, once a symbol of joy and togetherness, now stood as a reminder of the fear that had permeated our lives. Each night, as I lay in bed, I would hear the whispers, the footsteps, and the soft calling of my name. I felt a connection to Grandpa, a sense of his presence watching over me, but also a deeper, darker presence that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. It became clear that we needed to take action. We couldn't continue living in a house that seemed intent on driving us mad. My parents and I began to talk seriously about moving, about leaving behind the home that had been both a sanctuary and a prison. In the end, we made the difficult decision to leave. Packing up our belongings and saying goodbye to the house that had been our home for so many years was bittersweet. We hoped that by moving, we could escape the hauntings that had plagued us, but there was a lingering fear that they would follow us, that the past could never truly be left behind. As we drove away from the house in Bluffton, I looked back one last time, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. The house stood silent and still, its secrets buried within its walls. And though we were leaving it behind, I knew that the experiences we had there would stay with us forever, a haunting reminder of the things that dwell just beyond the edge of understanding. Our new home offered a fresh start, but the memories of Grandpa and the unsettling events in our old house continued to linger. In quiet moments, I would find myself reflecting on everything that had happened, trying to make sense of the supernatural occurrences that had shaken our family to the core. I returned to Grandpa's letter often, finding solace in his words of guidance and warning. He had understood more than any of us realized, and his insights gave me courage to delve deeper into the mysteries that surrounded us. With each passing day, I felt a growing determination to uncover the truth, to understand why our family seemed bound to these inexplicable forces. Months turned into years, and while the intensity of the hauntings diminished, they never truly disappeared. I pursued my studies with a focus on paranormal phenomena, hoping to find answers that could shed light on our experiences. My parents, too, found their own ways of coping, though the memories of that time continued to influence our lives in ways both subtle and profound. In time, I came to see our ordeal not just as a series of frightening events, but as a testament to the strength of family bonds and the resilience of the human spirit. Grandpa's presence remained a guiding force, his belief in our ability to confront the unknown, inspiring me to keep searching for answers. Today, as I write this, I am reminded of how far we have come since that fateful day. Our old house in Bluffton may hold its secrets, but we have found peace in knowing that we faced our fears together. The journey has been fraught with challenges, but it has also been marked by moments of profound understanding and connection. In the end, I believe that Grandpa's death was not just a loss, but a catalyst for growth and discovery. His memory lives on in the stories we share and the lessons we continue to learn. And though the supernatural may always remain a part of our family's narrative, we have learned to embrace it with courage and curiosity, knowing that we are stronger together than we ever were apart. The decision to move out of our old house in Bluffton was both a relief and a source of anxiety. We hoped that leaving behind the haunted walls would finally bring us peace, but there was an unspoken fear that the supernatural presence might follow us. Our new home, a quaint house in a quiet neighborhood, seemed like a fresh start. However, it didn't take long for the familiar unease to creep back into our lives. The first few weeks in the new house were blissfully normal. We settled into our routines, enjoying the newfound tranquility. The Christmas decorations were packed away, and life seemed to regain a sense of normalcy. But just as we began to relax, the strange phenomena started again, subtle at first, but growing more pronounced with each passing day. It began with the voices. At night, as I lay in bed, I would hear faint whispers, just beyond the edge of comprehension. They seemed to emanate from the walls, like distant echoes of a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. I strained to make out the words, but they always eluded me, leaving me with a sense of unease that made it impossible to sleep. One particularly restless night, I decided to investigate. The house was dark and silent as I crept out of my room, the floorboards creaking under my weight. I followed the whispers down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. They led me to the living room, where the moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I stood in the middle of the room, listening intently. The whispers seemed to surround me, growing louder and more insistent. I turned slowly, trying to pinpoint their source, but they seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Suddenly, a cold breeze brushed against my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The whispers stopped abruptly, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. I waited, straining to hear any response, but there was nothing. The cold breeze dissipated, and the room felt empty once more. I stood there for a moment longer, my fear giving way to frustration. I had hoped that moving would put an end to the hauntings, but it seemed that the past was determined to follow us. Over the next few weeks, the voices grew more frequent and more disturbing. They seemed to follow me wherever I went, whispering my name, uttering phrases I couldn't understand. My parents, too, began to experience the phenomena. My mother would wake up in the middle of the night, convinced she heard someone calling her. My father, ever the skeptic, admitted that he sometimes felt a presence in the house, though he tried to rationalize it as stress or fatigue. One night, as I was lying in bed, I heard the whispers again, louder than ever before. This time, they were accompanied by a faint tapping sound, like fingers drumming on a table. I sat up, my heart racing, and listened. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, and seemed to be coming from the attic. Gathering my courage, I grabbed a flashlight and headed upstairs. The attic door creaked as I pushed it open, revealing a dusty, cluttered space filled with old boxes and forgotten belongings. The tapping continued, now almost deafening in the confined space. I shone the flashlight around, searching for the source. In the far corner of the attic, I saw a figure. It was shrouded in darkness, its features indistinguishable. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The figure raised a hand and pointed towards one of the boxes. I hesitated, then slowly approached, my flashlight trembling in my hand. As I reached the box, the figure vanished, leaving me alone in the attic. I opened the box and found an old photo album inside. Flipping through the pages, I saw pictures of my family, taken long before I was born. There were photos of my grandparents, my parents as children, and even some of our old house in Bluffton. Among the photos, I found a letter addressed to me, written in my grandfather's familiar handwriting. "Ethan," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means the hauntings have followed you. The presence that has tormented us is tied to our family, and it will not rest until it is confronted. You must be brave, my boy, and seek out the truth. Only then can you find peace." Tears welled up in my eyes as I read his words. I felt a renewed sense of determination, a resolve to face whatever was haunting us. I knew that I couldn't do it alone, but with my family by my side, I believed we could uncover the truth and finally put an end to the supernatural torment. The next morning, I shared the letter with my parents. They listened intently, their expressions a mix of fear and resolve. We decided to delve deeper into our family's history, hoping to uncover the source of the haunting. It was clear that our journey was far from over, but for the first time, we felt a glimmer of hope. Together, we would face the darkness and seek the truth, determined to reclaim our lives from the shadows that had followed us for so long. Our first step was to visit the local library, a place I had always associated with the mundane rather than the mysterious. However, in the dim light of its old reading rooms, surrounded by the smell of aging paper and the quiet whispers of turning pages, I felt a connection to the past. We scoured records and archives, looking for any mention of our family history or unusual events tied to our lineage. The search was tedious, yet strangely compelling, drawing us deeper into a web of secrets and long-forgotten stories. We discovered that our family had lived in Bluffton for generations, each branch of our lineage bearing its own tales of strange occurrences and inexplicable phenomena. One recurring theme was the presence of a mysterious figure, described in various ways, but always connected to moments of great change or turmoil within the family. It seemed that the entity that haunted us was not a recent development, but a shadow that had loomed over us for centuries. Our investigation led us to old letters, diaries, and newspaper clippings that hinted at a darker aspect of our family history. One particularly chilling find was an account of a distant ancestor, Samuel, who had been accused of practicing dark rituals in the early 1800s. According to the records, Samuel had claimed to commune with spirits, seeking their guidance and power. His practices had been met with fear and suspicion, eventually leading to his exile from the community. The stories suggested that Samuel's actions had opened a doorway, inviting something otherworldly into our family's life. Armed with this knowledge, we returned home, determined to face the entity head-on. We decided to hold a séance, hoping to communicate with the presence and find a way to put it to rest. The idea of summoning the supernatural was terrifying, but we felt it was our only option. The night of the séance, we gathered in the living room, the same room where I had first heard the whispers. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and fear. We placed candles around the room and sat in a circle, holding hands. My father read aloud from an old book of rituals we had found during our research. invoking the spirits and asking for guidance. At first, nothing happened. The room remained silent, the candle flames flickering gently. But as my father's voice grew more insistent, a cold breeze swept through the room. The candles flickered wildly, and the whispers returned, louder and clearer than ever before. We sat in silence, listening to the voices, trying to decipher their message. Suddenly, the figure appeared in the corner of the room, just as it had in the attic. This time it was more distinct, its features almost human. It raised a hand, pointing towards me, and I felt a surge of emotions, fear, sorrow, and an overwhelming sense of recognition. It was as if the entity was trying to communicate something important, something that I needed to understand. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice trembling. The figure's form wavered, and I heard my grandfather's voice, faint but clear. "Ethan, you must understand. The past cannot be changed, but it can be understood. Seek the truth, and you will find peace." With those words, the figure vanished, and the room fell silent once more. We sat in stunned silence, processing what had just happened. My grandfather's message was clear. We needed to understand the past to find peace in the present. In the days that followed, we continued our research, piecing together the fragments of our family's history. We learned that Samuel's actions had indeed opened a doorway, allowing a restless spirit to latch onto our family. This spirit, bound by unresolved grievances and unfinished business, had followed us through generations, seeking closure. Armed with this knowledge, we performed a final ritual, acknowledging the spirit's presence and offering it the peace it sought. The ritual was simple but heartfelt, a way of honoring the past and letting go of the fear that had haunted us. As we completed the ritual, the atmosphere in the house changed. The oppressive weight lifted, and a sense of calm settled over us. The whispers ceased, and the eerie presence faded away. For the first time in years, we felt a sense of true peace. Our journey was far from over, but we had taken the first steps towards understanding and healing. The experience had brought us closer together, strengthening our bonds and giving us a new appreciation for the power of family and the resilience of the human spirit. As we moved forward, we carried with us the lessons we had learned and the memory of those who had come before us. The past, with all its mysteries and shadows, was a part of us, but it no longer held us captive. We had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever the future held. Our resolve to uncover the truth about the hauntings brought my family closer together. The shared experiences of the supernatural had created a bond of mutual understanding and determination. We spent hours researching our family history, searching for any clues that might explain the presence that had followed us from Bluffton. One evening, my father returned from the library with a stack of old documents and a grave expression. He had found records detailing the history of our family and the land on which both our old and new houses were built. As we pored over the documents, a chilling story began to emerge. Our ancestors had been among the first settlers in the Bluffton area, and the land they had acquired was rumored to be cursed. There were stories of strange deaths, unexplained disappearances, and sightings of ghostly figures dating back centuries. It seemed that our family had always been connected to the supernatural, a legacy of torment passed down through generations. One document in particular caught our attention. It was an old diary, written by an ancestor named Samuel Anderson in the early 1800s. His entries detailed his encounters with a shadowy figure that haunted his home and the voices that plagued his nights. He believed that the land was cursed, and that the only way to lift the curse was to perform a ritual to appease the spirits. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, we read on. Samuel described the ritual in great detail. It involved lighting candles at the four corners of the property, reciting an incantation to summon the spirits, and offering a personal item of great sentimental value as a gesture of goodwill. He wrote that he had attempted the ritual, but had failed to complete it, as he was interrupted by a violent storm. My mother suggested that we try to complete the ritual, hoping that it might bring an end to the hauntings. My father and I were skeptical, but we were willing to try anything at this point. We gathered the necessary items, candles, a copy of the incantation, and a locket that had belonged to my grandfather, one of his most cherished possessions. On the night of the ritual, the air was heavy with anticipation. We waited until midnight, the hour when the supernatural was believed to be at its most powerful. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over our property as we set up the candles at the four corners of the yard. As we began the incantation, the wind picked up, rustling the trees and sending a chill through the air. My voice trembled as I recited the ancient words, my family standing beside me, their faces lit by the flickering candlelight. When we reached the part of the ritual where we had to offer the locket, I held it up, feeling its weight in my hand. "Spirits of the past, we seek to appease you," I called out, my voice echoing in the night. "Accept this offering and grant us peace." For a moment, nothing happened. The wind died down and the candles burned steadily. Then, a low, mournful wail rose from the ground, growing louder and more intense. The candles flickered violently, and a cold, unnatural fog began to swirl around us. From the fog emerged the shadowy figure, more distinct than ever before. It was tall and shrouded in darkness, but its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. I could feel its gaze upon me, a mixture of sorrow and anger. "Why do you haunt us?" I cried out, my voice shaking. The figure raised its hand, pointing toward the house. In my mind, I heard a voice, not my grandfather's this time, but something deeper, older. "The debt must be paid," it whispered. "The past must be acknowledged." With that, the figure began to dissolve, the fog dissipating along with it. The candles flickered out, plunging us into darkness. We stood there, stunned and breathless, unsure of what had just happened. The next morning, the house felt different. The oppressive atmosphere that had plagued us seemed to have lifted, replaced by a sense of calm. The whispers and footsteps were gone, and for the first time in years, we felt a glimmer of hope. We continued our research, determined to understand the full story of our ancestors and the curse that had followed us. We discovered that Samuel Anderson had not been the only one to attempt the ritual. Others in our family had tried and failed, each leaving behind fragments of their efforts and clues to the nature of the curse. It became clear that the hauntings were tied to the unacknowledged past, to the spirits of those who had suffered and been forgotten. By completing the ritual and offering a cherished item, we had begun the process of reconciliation, but there was more to be done. As we delved deeper into our family's history, we unearthed stories of hardship and loss, of wrongs committed and debts unpaid. It was a painful journey, but it brought us closer together, united in our quest for understanding and peace. In the end, we learned that the past can never be fully escaped, but it can be understood and acknowledged. By facing the shadows of our history, we found a way to move forward, not free from the hauntings, but with a deeper understanding of their source and a newfound strength to confront them. Our family had been through much, but we emerged from the ordeal stronger, more connected, and ready to face whatever the future might hold. The shadows of the past would always be a part of us, but they no longer held the power to control our lives. We had reclaimed our home and our peace, and with that, we found a new beginning. The ritual, it seemed, was a starting point rather than a solution. In the weeks and months that followed, we continued our journey of discovery and healing. We spoke to local historians, visited ancestral grave sites, and even reached out to distant relatives, piecing together a fuller picture of our family's history. One of the most enlightening discoveries came from an old family Bible, passed down through generations and nearly forgotten in the back of a closet. Inside its pages, we found annotations and letters that revealed the struggles and resilience of our ancestors. They had faced their own battles with the supernatural, but they had also built lives of strength and endurance. Their stories were a testament to the enduring spirit of our family, a legacy of resilience that we had inherited. With each revelation, we felt a deeper connection to our roots and a greater understanding of the forces that had shaped our lives. The hauntings, while still a part of our reality, became less about fear and more about understanding. We learned to coexist with the shadows, acknowledging their presence without letting them dominate our lives. As time passed, the supernatural occurrences diminished. The whispers became less frequent, the footsteps in the night quieter. We knew that the spirits had not left us completely, but their presence was no longer a source of terror. Instead, it was a reminder of our connection to the past and the strength we had found in facing it together. The decision to stay in our new home despite the initial fear and uncertainty, proved to be the right one. We had transformed a place of potential dread into a sanctuary of understanding and resilience. Our family grew closer, our bonds strengthened by the trials we had faced and the history we had uncovered. In the end, we found peace not by escaping the shadows, but by embracing them, acknowledging their place in our story, and honoring the legacy of those who came before us. The past, with all its mysteries and challenges, became a part of who we were, shaping us into a family united by more than just blood, but by a shared journey of discovery and courage. And so, as we looked towards the future, we did so with hope and confidence, knowing that whatever came our way, we would face it together, strengthened by the knowledge of our past and the resilience of our spirits. The shadows of the past were no longer a threat, but a testament to the enduring legacy of our family and the power of understanding and love. After completing the ritual, our lives returned to a semblance of normalcy. The oppressive atmosphere in our house had lifted, and the whispers and shadows that had tormented us for years seemed to have finally dissipated. However, the fear that the hauntings might return lingered in the back of our minds. We decided that the best way to ensure a fresh start was to move to a new home, far from the memories and the shadows of Bluffton. Finding a new house was a challenge. We wanted a place that felt warm and welcoming, a stark contrast to the haunted memories of our old home. After weeks of searching, we finally found it, a charming, sunlit house on the outskirts of a small town. The moment we stepped inside, we felt a sense of peace and belonging. It was exactly what we needed. The move itself was exhausting, but filled with a sense of hope. We packed up our belongings, careful to leave behind anything that might carry the remnants of our past hauntings. As we settled into our new home, the sense of relief was palpable. It was a chance to start over, to build new memories untainted by the supernatural. For the first few months, everything was perfect. The house was bright and airy, filled with the sounds of laughter and the warmth of family. We decorated it with care, making it truly our own. The nightmares and sleepless nights that had plagued us were replaced by restful sleep and a sense of security. We began to believe that we had finally escaped the shadows of our past. However, as the holidays approached, a sense of unease began to creep back in. Christmas had always been a time of joy for our family, but it was also when the hauntings had been most intense. Despite our best efforts to remain positive, we couldn't shake the feeling that something might go wrong. One evening, as we were decorating the Christmas tree, I felt a familiar chill in the air. It was subtle at first, but it grew stronger, sending a shiver down my spine. I glanced around the room, half expecting to see a shadowy figure lurking in the corners, but everything seemed normal. I shook off the feeling and continued hanging ornaments, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread. Later that night, I woke up to the sound of faint whispers. My heart raced as I listened, straining to catch the words. They were soft, almost inaudible, but unmistakable. I sat up in bed, my body tense with fear. The whispers seemed to come from all around me, echoing through the house. I climbed out of bed and crept down the hallway, following the whispers to the living room. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, its lights twinkling softly. As I approached, I saw a shadowy figure standing next to the tree. It was tall and indistinct, just like the figure that had haunted us in Bluffton. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. It simply stood there, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I took a step forward, my fear battling with my determination to understand what was happening. As I reached out, the figure began to fade, dissolving into the darkness. The whispers stopped, and the room fell silent. I stood there, my heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. It seemed that no matter how far we moved, the shadows of our past would always find us. The next morning, I told my parents about the encounter. They listened with concern, their faces etched with worry. We had hoped that moving would put an end to the hauntings, but it seemed that the past was determined to follow us. We knew that we couldn't continue living in fear, but we also knew that we couldn't ignore the reality of our situation. We decided to seek help from a professional paranormal investigator. It was a difficult decision, but we needed answers, The investigator, a woman named Dr. Emily Hawthorne, had a reputation for her expertise in dealing with supernatural phenomena. She agreed to come to our home and conduct an investigation. Dr. Hawthorne arrived a few days later, her presence calm and reassuring. She spent hours interviewing us, listening to our experiences and examining the house. She conducted various tests and set up equipment to monitor any paranormal activity. Her approach was methodical and scientific, a stark contrast to the fear and confusion we had lived with for so long. After a thorough investigation, Dr. Hawthorne sat us down to discuss her findings. She explained that the presence we had encountered was likely tied to the unresolved trauma and emotions within our family. The ritual we had performed in Bluffton had helped to some extent, but it hadn't fully addressed the underlying issues. The hauntings are not just about the places you've lived, she explained. They're about your family's history and the emotional energy you carry with you. Moving to a new house can provide a fresh start, but it doesn't erase the past. You need to confront and resolve the emotional wounds that have been passed down through generations. Her words resonated with us. We realized that the hauntings were not just about ghosts and shadows. They were about the unresolved pain and fear within our family. We needed to address these issues if we wanted to find true peace. With Dr. Hawthorne's guidance, we began a journey of healing. We talked openly about our fears and experiences, shared our emotions, and worked to understand the trauma that had affected our family for so long. It was a difficult process, but it brought us closer together and helped us find a sense of closure. As we confronted our past, the supernatural occurrences gradually diminished. The whispers and shadows became less frequent, and the sense of unease that had plagued us began to fade. We learned that true peace came not from escaping our past, but from understanding and healing from it. Our new home became a place of healing and renewal. We embraced the present, cherishing the moments of joy and togetherness that we had longed for. The shadows of the past no longer held power over us. We had faced them and emerged stronger, united in our determination to move forward. Christmas came and went without incident, and for the first time in years, we celebrated with a sense of true happiness. Our family had found a new beginning, free from the hauntings that had once defined our lives. And though the memories of the past would always be a part of us, we had learned to live in the light, leaving the shadows behind. The months following Dr. Hawthorne's visit saw a significant transformation in our lives. The oppressive weight of our past lifted, replaced by a newfound sense of freedom and hope. We continued to work on healing our emotional wounds, both individually and as a family, drawing strength from our shared experiences and the support we provided each other. In the spring, we planted a garden in our backyard, a symbol of our growth and renewal. Tending to the flowers and vegetables became a family activity, a way to nurture the new life we were building together. The vibrant colors and fresh scents brought a sense of vitality and optimism to our home, reinforcing our commitment to moving forward. As we settled into our new routines, we also made an effort to reach out to our new community. We hosted barbecues, attended local events, and made friends with our neighbors. The warmth and camaraderie we found in our new town further solidified our sense of belonging and normalcy. One evening, as we sat around the fire pit in our backyard, my father spoke about our journey. "We've been through so much," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "But look at us now. We've come out stronger, closer, and more resilient. I'm proud of all of us for facing our fears and not letting them define us." His words echoed our collective sentiment. We had faced unimaginable fear and uncertainty, but we had emerged with a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. The shadows of our past had been acknowledged and integrated into our story, no longer a source of fear, but a testament to our strength and resilience. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready to face whatever the future held. The new home we had found was more than just a physical space. It was a symbol of our growth, our courage, and our commitment to each other. It was a place where we could continue to build new memories, free from the hauntings of our past. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, we embraced our new life with open hearts and minds. We knew that challenges would come, but we were confident in our ability to overcome them together. The lessons we had learned, the bonds we had forged, and the strength we had discovered within ourselves would guide us forward. And so, we moved on. not just to a new home, but to a new chapter in our lives. The shadows of our past remained a part of us, but they no longer held us captive. We had found our way through the darkness, and in doing so, we had found each other. In the end, it was not the absence of hauntings that brought us peace, but the presence of love, understanding, and resilience. We had faced our fears, healed our wounds, and built a future filled with hope and light. Our new home was a testament to our journey, a place where we could continue to grow, together and unafraid. Our journey toward healing and understanding had been long and arduous, but as we emerged from the shadows of our past, we felt a renewed sense of hope and peace. Our new home became a sanctuary, a place where we could rebuild our lives free from the supernatural torments that had haunted us for so long. The support and guidance of Dr. Hawthorne had been instrumental in helping us confront and resolve the emotional wounds that had plagued our family for generations. With the hauntings diminishing, we began to focus on creating new, happy memories. Our home was filled with laughter and love, and we embraced the simple joys of daily life. Each day felt like a gift, a chance to start anew without the fear that had once consumed us. One sunny afternoon, as I was unpacking the last of the boxes in the attic, I came across an old photo album that had belonged to my grandfather. It was filled with pictures of our family, spanning several generations. As I flipped through the pages, I was struck by the sense of continuity and connection that bound us together. Despite the hardships and hauntings, our family had always found a way to persevere. One photo in particular caught my eye. It was a picture of my grandfather as a young man, standing in front of the old house in Bluffton with a broad smile on his face. He looked so happy and full of life, a stark contrast to the troubled man I remembered in his later years. I felt a pang of sadness, but also a deep sense of gratitude for the love and wisdom he had passed down to me. Inspired by the photo, I decided to create a new family tradition, a yearly gathering to celebrate our history and honor the memories of those who had come before us. It would be a way to keep our family's legacy alive and to remind us of the strength and resilience that had seen us through even the darkest times. As Christmas approached, we prepared for our first annual family reunion. We invited relatives from near and far, many of whom we hadn't seen in years. The house buzzed with excitement and anticipation as we decorated the living room and set up a large Christmas tree, its branches adorned with ornaments that held special significance for our family. On the day of the reunion, the house was filled with warmth and laughter. Relatives shared stories and reminisced about the past, their voices mingling with the sounds of holiday music and the crackling of the fireplace. For the first time in years, we felt truly at peace, surrounded by the love and support of our extended family. As evening fell, we gathered in the living room for a special ceremony. I stood before the tree, holding the old photo album in my hands, and began to speak. Today we come together to celebrate our family's history and to honor the memories of those who are no longer with us. We have faced many challenges and hardships, but through it all, we have remained strong and united. This reunion is a testament to our resilience and our love for one another. I opened the album to the picture of my grandfather and held it up for everyone to see. This is a photo of Grandpa, taken many years ago in front of our old house in Bluffton. He was a man of great strength and wisdom, and his love for this family was unwavering. Let us remember him and all those who came before us, and let their spirits guide us as we move forward. We stood in a circle, holding hands, and shared a moment of silence in honor of our ancestors. The room was filled with a sense of peace and connection, as if the spirits of our loved ones were there with us, watching over us and offering their blessing. As the evening continued, we exchanged gifts and enjoyed a festive meal, the air filled with the sounds of joy and laughter. The house, once a place of fear and unease, had been transformed into a haven of love and happiness. We had found a way to move beyond the shadows of our past, embracing the light and the promise of a brighter future. In the days and weeks that followed, we continued to build on the foundation of healing and understanding that we had established. We sought out new experiences and opportunities, determined to create a life filled with positivity and joy. The memories of the hauntings and the darkness that had once overshadowed our lives began to fade, replaced by the warmth of new beginnings. Our family had come full circle, from the depths of fear and uncertainty to the heights of hope and renewal. We had faced our past, confronted our demons, and emerged stronger and more united than ever before. The shadows of Bluffton no longer held power over us. We had reclaimed our lives and our happiness. As I looked out over our new home, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had undertaken. We had found a way to honor our past while embracing the future, creating a legacy of love and resilience that would endure for generations to come. And in that moment, I knew that we were truly home. Our first annual family reunion marked a turning point in our lives. The gathering brought together relatives who had been scattered, and the bonds we forged that night strengthened our resolve to cherish and protect one another. This sense of unity helped us face challenges with newfound confidence, knowing that we were supported by a network of love and understanding. As spring blossomed, our home became a hub of activity and growth. We planted a garden in the backyard, a symbol of the new life we were cultivating. Working side by side, we tended to the flowers and vegetables, finding solace and joy in the simple act of nurturing life. The garden flourished, a testament to our resilience and the positive energy we were creating together. Our community involvement also grew. We participated in local events, hosted neighborhood gatherings, and formed friendships with the people around us. These connections enriched our lives, providing a sense of belonging and reinforcing the feeling that we had truly found a new beginning. One memorable summer evening, as we sat around the fire pit in our backyard, my mother shared her thoughts on our journey. "We've been through so much," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But look at us now. We've come out stronger, closer, and more resilient. I'm proud of all of us for facing our fears and not letting them define us." Her words echoed our collective sentiment. We had faced unimaginable fear and uncertainty, but we had emerged with a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. The shadows of our past had been acknowledged and integrated into our story, no longer a source of fear, but a testament to our strength and resilience. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready to face whatever the future held. The new home we had found was more than just a physical space. It was a symbol of our growth, our courage, and our commitment to each other. It was a place where we could continue to build new memories, free from the hauntings of our past. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, we embraced our new life with open hearts and minds. We knew that challenges would come, but we were confident in our ability to overcome them together. The lessons we had learned, the bonds we had forged, and the strength we had discovered within ourselves would guide us forward. And so, we moved on, not just to a new home, but to a new chapter in our lives. The shadows of our past remained a part of us, but they no longer held us captive. We had found our way through the darkness, and in doing so, we had found each other. In the end, it was not the absence of hauntings that brought us peace, but the presence of love, understanding, and resilience. We had faced our fears, healed our wounds, and built a future filled with hope and light. Our new home was a testament to our journey, a place where we could continue to grow, together and unafraid. As the years went by, the sense of peace and normalcy that we had worked so hard to achieve settled comfortably over our lives. Our new home became a place of joy and love, a sanctuary from the supernatural disturbances that had once haunted us. We rarely spoke of the past, focusing instead on the future and the new memories we were creating. However, there was one final chapter to be written in our story, one last goodbye that would truly bring closure to our family's journey. It was a crisp autumn morning when I received a letter from the Historical Society in Bluffton. They were organizing an event to commemorate the town's founding families, and our family was among those being honored. The invitation included a request for any artifacts or stories we might be willing to share about our ancestors. My parents and I discussed it at length, and we decided to attend. It felt like the right time to revisit Bluffton, to confront our past one last time and to pay tribute to our heritage. The day of the event arrived, and we drove to Bluffton with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. As we approached the town, memories of our old house and the supernatural experiences we had endured came flooding back. Despite the unease, we felt a strong sense of resolve. This was an opportunity to finally close the chapter on that part of our lives. The event was held in the town hall, a grand old building filled with photographs and artifacts from Bluffton's history. We were warmly welcomed by the organizers and introduced to other descendants of the town's founding families. It was fascinating to hear their stories and to see the connections between our histories. There was a shared sense of pride and belonging, a recognition of the enduring spirit that had shaped our community. As the afternoon progressed, it was our turn to share our family's story. We had brought the photo album that had belonged to my grandfather, along with the letter he had written to me. Standing before the audience, I felt a surge of emotion. This was more than just a commemoration. It was a chance to honor the struggles and triumphs of our ancestors and to acknowledge the supernatural legacy that had been a part of our lives. I began by sharing the story of our family's experiences in Bluffton, from the earliest settlers to our own encounters with the supernatural. I spoke of the hauntings, the voices, and the shadowy figures, and how we had come to understand that these phenomena were tied to our family's unresolved history. As I recounted our journey of healing and reconciliation, I could see the impact it had on the audience. Many nodded in understanding, and some even shared similar experiences from their own families. When I finished, there was a moment of silence, followed by a heartfelt round of applause. It was a cathartic experience, a way of releasing the lingering fears and anxieties that had haunted us for so long. We felt a sense of closure, a final goodbye to the shadows of our past. After the event, we visited our old house one last time. The new owners had graciously allowed us to walk through the property. It was strange to see the house so changed, yet so familiar. The rooms that had once been filled with fear and unease now felt empty, devoid of the supernatural presence that had tormented us. Standing in the living room, where so many of our most intense experiences had occurred, I felt a sense of peace. The house no longer held any power over us. We had faced our past, acknowledged the pain and trauma, and emerged stronger. This final visit was an act of closure, a way of saying goodbye to the darkness and embracing the light. As we left Bluffton and drove back to our new home, I felt a profound sense of relief and gratitude. Our journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought us closer together as a family. We had learned the importance of confronting our fears, understanding our history, and finding strength in each other. Our lives continued to flourish in our new home, filled with love, laughter, and new memories. The hauntings of Bluffton became a distant memory, a part of our family's history that had shaped us but no longer defined us. We had found our peace, and with it, a new beginning. Our first annual family reunion marked a turning point in our lives. The gathering brought together relatives who had been scattered, and the bonds we forged that night strengthened our resolve to cherish and protect one another. This sense of unity helped us face challenges with newfound confidence, knowing that we were supported by a network of love and understanding. As spring blossomed, our home became a hub of activity and growth. We planted a garden in the backyard, a symbol of the new life we were cultivating. Working side by side, we tended to the flowers and vegetables, finding solace and joy in the simple act of nurturing life. The garden flourished, a testament to our resilience and the positive energy we were creating together. Our community involvement also grew. We participated in local events, hosted neighborhood gatherings, and formed friendships with the people around us. These connections enriched our lives, providing a sense of belonging and reinforcing the feeling that we had truly found a new beginning. One memorable summer evening, as we sat around the fire pit in our backyard, my mother shared her thoughts on our journey. "We've been through so much," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But look at us now. We've come out stronger, closer, and more resilient. I'm proud of all of us for facing our fears and not letting them define us." Her words echoed our collective sentiment. We had faced unimaginable fear and uncertainty, but we had emerged with a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. The shadows of our past had been acknowledged and integrated into our story, no longer a source of fear, but a testament to our strength and resilience. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready to face whatever the future held. The new home we had found was more than just a physical space. It was a symbol of our growth, our courage, and our commitment to each other. It was a place where we could continue to build new memories, free from the hauntings of our past. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, we embraced our new life with open hearts and minds. We knew that challenges would come, but we were confident in our ability to overcome them together. The lessons we had learned, the bonds we had forged, and the strength we had discovered within ourselves would guide us forward. And so, we moved on, not just to a new home, but to a new chapter in our lives. The shadows of our past remained a part of us, but they no longer held us captive. We'd found our way through the darkness, and in doing so, we had found each other. In the end, it was not the absence of hauntings that brought us peace, but the presence of love, understanding, and resilience. We had faced our fears, healed our wounds, and built a future filled with hope and light. Our new home was a testament to our journey, a place where we could continue to grow, together and unafraid. Years later, as I looked out over our garden, now a vibrant tapestry of colors, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Our lives were filled with beauty, love, and a profound sense of peace. The memories of our past, while still a part of us, had faded into the background, replaced by the warmth of our present and the promise of our future. Our family had come full circle, from the depths of fear and uncertainty to the heights of hope and renewal. We had faced the shadows of our past, found the strength to heal, and created a legacy of resilience and love that would endure for generations to come. Our journey had been unforgettable, but it was the future that now held our focus, bright and filled with promise. As I stood there, surrounded by the life we had built together, I knew that we were truly home.